Why does Ogilvy change exist? Very, very simply, because we as the advertising industry, the marketing services industry in general, would be absolutely deranged if we didn't seek to inform and improve and understand what we did with reference to some of the advances that are currently being made in the social sciences. In the last 20 or 30 years, I would say, social science has improved in a way that perhaps weather forecasting has improved. Now, if you take weather forecasting, it's fair to say that weather forecasting will never be an exact and perfect science. You'll never be able to have perfect predictive ability over what the weather will be like in 15 days' time. You can make some statistical assumptions, but nonetheless, it will never be absolutely perfect. However, it's fair to acknowledge that through the use of things like computer modelling and better understandings of the working of weather patterns, weather forecasting since about 1990 has improved enormously. A 4-day forecast today is about as reliable as a 2-day forecast was in 1985. A 6-day forecast now is about as good as a 3-day forecast was in 1985. In projecting, for example, the path of a hurricane 20, 30 years ago, you could only be as sort of precise to say it will move somewhere within this 300 to 400 mile wide corridor. Now that corridor, it's not perfect again, but it's down to about 100 miles in width. My contention is that similar improvements in understanding of how markets behave, how consumers decide, how we actually really make decisions, can obtain a similar kind of improvement in marketing activity. There's always this weird debate in marketing, is it an art and a science? I'm very one-sided on this. It has to be a science. Why? Because it has to be a science in order to get better at what it does. And why would you possibly ask someone to invest in something which isn't improving as an area of activity? Marketing has to improve. In order to do so, it really isn't actually that difficult. First of all, you've got to abandon the complete over-reliance on two pre-existing models of human behaviour and decision-making, which have had too much sway over marketing decisions for too long. One of them is very simply the assumptions of neoclassical economics, that markets behave according to these kind of Newtonian mechanistic rules of price-demand curves. A lot of the time, a lot of markets, for a lot of consumers, don't behave like that at all. And the assumption that they do probably causes an immense waste of economic value. The second assumption, which has also bedeviled marketing, because we've relied on it too much for too long, is the idea that people themselves can tell you what they want and how they choose and what they prefer. That you can take a group of people, put them in a room, and basically ask them to explain their behaviour, and their explanation of their behaviour will constitute an accurate predictive model of what they will do. What we're discovering from neuroscience is that actually large parts of the human brain involved in decision making aren't even accessible to introspection, let alone description. So attempting to actually pursue marketing simply by the practice of asking people what they want is sometimes dangerously wrong and at best incomplete. If we abandon these and start to derive influences from other places, and I don't just mean behavioural economics, although behavioural economics is perhaps the most important, also from things like Darwinian psychology, for instance, complexity theory, computer modelling. What we won't be able to do, and nor should we attempt it, is to become perfect at what we do. As I said, I used weather forecasting as an analogy for a very deliberate reason. But just imagine for a second if we could just improve by 1 or 2% every year. The way you change the world isn't by taking something that's good and making it a bit better. It's not by taking trains that are already quite fast and making them 20 miles an hour faster. That might be better, but it's not world-changing. The way you change the world is going from riding a horse to the car to the Boeing 747. Things that you can improve by a factor of 10. That's where you really change things. Now, I genuinely think that a great way to start is to take something we're very bad at, which is people forecasting, predicting how people behave, predicting how markets behave, and becoming just less crap at it. So what I'm not suggesting is we will somehow attain perfection. It isn't that kind of science, and we would be wrong to pretend that it is. But let's just assume what would happen if the success of new product launches, which is currently at about 3 to 5%, if you could increase that to 6 or 7%, suddenly the whole pattern of business innovation has changed. It's suddenly worth spending much more money on innovation when your likely failure rate has been just reduced by that little amount. And I genuinely believe that through the use of these new sciences and through better and more diverse models of how people really behave in the real world, we can actually improve the effectiveness of what we do by an order of magnitude. No, will it be perfect? Absolutely not. Will it be a lot better? That's all we need. After all, we're in business. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be less stupid than your competitors. That's the aim.